Jeffrey Epstein, who was officially declared dead in 2019 in a solitary confinement cell, might actually be alive and hiding in Israel. Interesting. Why not in Argentina? Probably because, after all, he's not a Nazi, just an ordinary criminal, right? So in the newly released files, they found one interesting thing. There is a complete mismatch between the date of death and the actual confirmation of that death. What did the United States Department of Justice find out? A document has surfaced that once again sparked a wave of conspiracy theories surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death. The federal death report lists the date as August 9th, 2019, which is one day before, according to official records, he was found dead in his jail cell in New York. A day earlier, right? This detail was reported in particular by the Daily Mail. Conspiracy theorists started talking about a staged death, and some commenters even claim that the convicted criminal is allegedly still alive and hiding in Israel. At the same time, there is no official confirmation of these claims, right? This is a large-scale conspiracy theory that is currently troubling not only American society, but also British and Norwegian societies, my friends. The interesting development now is that these files are being linked to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer himself, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is not mentioned in these files, but his appointments are in fact discrediting the Prime Minister himself. And on Downing Street, there are now talks that because of his reckless personnel decisions, he could even lose his position. Bloomberg has reported that the issue concerns the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United Kingdom. Peter Mandelson, he is the ambassador of the United Kingdom to the United States. It is also worth noting that Peter Mandelson is explicitly mentioned within those Jeffrey Epstein files. Consequently, he is currently a figure who remains under very close scrutiny, particularly from within the ranks of the Labour Party itself. The party is now actively conducting its own internal investigation to uncover all the relevant facts regarding this matter. And government officials are preparing for the possibility that ministers will eventually ask Starmer to resign, or may even threaten to resign themselves if he refuses. That's how it is. In other words, a complete, total reshuffling of the government. Now, Starmer's spokesperson has come out and publicly stated that Starmer isn't going anywhere. Everything is fine. Everyone should calm down. But a source for Bloomberg says that Starmer's chances of staying in office until the end of the week are 50-50. So that's the situation. Will he stay or not? The day before, the chief of staff to the UK Prime Minister, Morgan McSweeney, resigned. He had advised Starmer to appoint Mandelson as ambassador to the United States. In other words, Starmer has already found a scapegoat, someone to pin everything on. He's already found one. But whether his ass will actually catch fire, that's still a big question. Mandelson's name was found in the so-called Epstein files after the US Department of Justice released new documents in the case. What exactly this is about is still not entirely clear. And there's also some interesting information from Member of Parliament Honcharенko, which concerns another figure mentioned in these same newly released Epstein files. This, friends, is the former Secretary General of the Council of Europe, a Norwegian by passport, Thorbjørn Jagland. So Thorbjørn Jagland, as Honcharенko claims, because Honcharенko has been in the Council of Europe for a long time, as you know, as Ukraine's representative, the Norwegian authorities are initiating the removal of his immunity so that an investigation can take place. The basis for this is the materials from the Epstein files. Why did I mention him, writes Honcharенko? Jagland was one of the main lobbyists for the return of the Russian delegation to PACE in 2019. And all would be fine. But this, friends, is a blatant hint that this person, the conspiracy theory, whether he's alive or not, that's just something you can chat about in the kitchen. But on a more serious level, it's that this person really did work for the KGB, the FSB, whatever you want to call it. He could have worked for Russian intelligence. A person who bought off actual officials, either on a voluntary basis or in international advisory bodies like PACE, could pay them money so that they would promote the Russian agenda and, in fact, initiate high-level appointments in international organizations and reinstate delegations, despite the sanctions that were imposed on the Russian Federation after 2014. And all of this is quite serious, very serious indeed. Whether this person was an agent or not, over 1,000 mentions of Putin in the new files is the kind of story that propaganda media and Z channels are now trying very hard to ignore altogether. You won't find this topic among Russians right now. Epstein mentions Putin 1,000 times, and there is even evidence now from the US Department of Justice that this person tried to contact Putin personally to get an audience and promote certain things, and possibly to negotiate some benefits for himself, or It's unknown what for, it's unknown what about, and it's also unclear why this person later ordered, this is also interesting in these files, ordered sulfur, well, basically acid, which they wanted to use to break something down on their island, Epstein's island. A lot of people are writing, oh, he wanted to use it for his illegitimate children's bodies. Well, that's just what people are saying there. There are supposedly other bodies, and there are stories about murders, about some complete maniac. But it seems to me that this sulfur, it can basically decompose documents too, right? Documents, because this order actually predates the opening of the FBI case. It appears that someone leaked this data, and then someone warned Epstein so that he would, in the end, begin the process of covering up these traces. Well, as for how well it turned out, we understand that it wasn't very good, but well, it is what it is. So Epstein, what could possibly happen next? How could all of this turn out? Well, for Starmer, we already understand. But for example, what about Donald Trump? There's this guy, a fairly popular and well-known congressman from the state of Georgia. He organized a rally, and do you know what he did? He accused the regime, the Trump regime, of extreme corruption and being deeply compromised. He said, we were promised MAGA, make America great again, and told that MAGA was for ordinary working people. But what we got was Epstein Gate. That's why Trump has to go, and his entire team has to go as well. Here's a clip. Just listen to how people support this story.
Remember, we were all told that MAGA was specifically for working class Americans. Do you remember hearing that? But this is a government of by and for the ultra-rich. It is the wealthiest cabinet ever. This is the Epstein class that is ruling over our country right now.
Let me translate a bit. He says they are the elites, right? They pretend to hate them. So prices are rising, jobs are disappearing, Medicaid and school lunch programs are being cut, and funding for nursing homes is being slashed. If you're from the FBI and your position was Trump is for the forgotten men and women, how can you sell all this? It's the Epstein class, says Senator John Ossoff. That's running our country. Trump was supposed to fight for the working class, but instead he's literally shutting down rural clinics and hospitals to cut taxes for George Soros and Elon Musk. And now it's heading there too. And he was supposed to put an end to the globalist foreign policy of this policeman. But instead, we're once again fighting wars for oil, engaging in nation building. We're threatening to conquer Greenland. What even is all this? That's why we're supposedly demanding massive changes. And, this isn't just a one-off. These aren't isolated incidents. We've already talked today about former press secretaries, about Starmer, and now we're talking about Bezant, who is the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America. It's just flying everywhere. Wherever this fan turns, these Epstein files are covering everyone. And here's the most interesting part, right? Right now, there are very serious rumors circulating that the most intriguing stories from the Epstein files have yet to be revealed to the world. The world really hasn't seen them yet. Why? Why can we draw such a conclusion? Where basically do these kinds of rumors come from? And I'll tell you, it's all quite logical. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton took this whole story quite seriously. Well, this couple, has been through more than one political crisis and personal crisis. And this couple, who have been in the spotlight or at the top of American politics for so many, many, many years, I'd say the last 30 years, are still there. Now, they insist that all these files need to be made public, letter by letter in their entirety. Just take everything that exists and make it public, plain and simple. Bill Clinton, look, I am calling for the full disclosure of the Epstein files. I have provided written testimony under oath about what I know, and just this week I agreed to appear in person before the committee. But even that is still not enough for the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee. In other words, make everything public. No, don't do it. Don't create more manipulation. Now, what does Hillary say? Hillary says, look, so let's stop the games. She says, let's stop these games. If you truly want to have a fight, then let's have it right here in public. Yes, absolutely everything we want to do and every single thing you want to hear from us. Let's do it all only in a public setting, only publicly, only in a completely public way, so that the entire world can finally know the absolute truth. And why does it follow from this logic? Yes, that's what I'm trying to explain. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton say, let's do it. And the Democrats say, let's do it. And the Republicans dig in their heels. No, that means secret hearings in the committee, non-disclosure agreements, and so on and so forth. Why? That means there's something to hide, friends. There's something to hide. The Republicans are basically hanging by a thread right now. And our midterm elections are basically starting. The campaign kicks off in May, and the midterms themselves will take place in November. That's it. This whole big MAGA Trump era could just end so easily, just like that, in a matter of months. That's why, of course, it's a great story for the Democrats to come riding back in on white horses right now, because once again, the biggest revelations are still ahead of us, but only if this whole let's make everything public story is really pushed through. Believe me when I say this, there aren't just a mere 1,000 mentions of Putin buried deep within those documents. In fact, there are far, far more than you could ever imagine.